Hey, welcome back, people. It's Brian Gregg back again with another screencast on Handlebars for Resurgence Web Design. Today we are going to be talking about block expressions. So, in the last tutorial on Handlebars, we talked about semantic templating in general. Today we are going to be working with some larger volumes of data and making some content that is a little bit more robust and that is going to take advantage of um, uh, the handlebars ability to process data through JavaScript in a programmatic fashion. So, just a quick recap. Again, semantic templating, the purpose behind it is to be able to separate out the implementation versus the view. This gives a ability to present our templates in a format that is familiar to people who would be managing content on the front end, and separating out the logic that is used in JavaScript to actually consume the data, pull the data from APIs, and push it out to the presentation layer. We are going to be taking a look today at some JSON objects that are stored within a em.json, and this is actually going to be a list of um, English monarchs and some details about those English monarchs. And if we look at our main.js, take note that I've done a couple of things to just improve the readability of this. I've split the JavaScript out into its own separate JS file instead of having it embedded directly within the index. I've also included Bootstrap and as well as the jQuery and handlebars so that we can format the data a little bit better and just make something that's a little bit more representative of what you might actually see in a handlebars template. So back to the main.js. In the top here, what we're doing is we're taking the source from the HTML and the entry template, which is back in our index.html. That's this template right here. And we're compiling that and setting that to our template. We are then making a call out to jQuery's getJSON function. This is going to go back and grab the JSON file off of our server, localhost in this example. But you can obviously do the same thing using API calls or pulling in data from a variety of different sources. And then passing that data to a callback function here. And then this callback function is where we're going to actually execute the template. The reason being, obviously, that we want this to run synchronously after our JSON data is returned. We wouldn't want to pull the data and then start executing immediately, because it obviously takes some time for data to be received. We are then going to create our context, and just like in the last example, the context is going to be what the template is going, the data that the template is going to be consuming, and we're going to pass that as an object like we did the last time. The only thing is, instead of just passing in a single value for title and body like we did the last time, we are going to be passing the entire data set that gets returned from our JSON call and passing it into a value called monarchs. And I've added in a console log here so we can take a look at what that looks like. Let's just refresh my screen here. And it's going to pass back an object. That object is going to contain an array called monarchs, and that array is going to have each of the elements that are being referenced in that JSON file. And you can see it has each object has 4 variables: city, house, name, and years, which we'll be presenting in our template. We're going to take that context and we're going to pass it to our template, and we're going to set that in a variable called HTML, which is then going to be rendered in our content ID. So the idea here behind a context, obviously this is going to be where the value in using templates comes in, is that we can call this template with any data. So we're passing in monarchs, maybe we want to have the option of pulling in queens, princes, or presidents, or whatever data we want, we can pass to this template within its specific context, and we can render that using the same general layout. So obviously, if you're creating if you're pulling data from a database and you're pulling data that can represent a wide variety of context, this is going to become extremely useful in being able to have a single template or a small collection of templates that can easily render your data. This template in particular is going to contain a block expression, and that block expression is going to be defined within the double curly braces like we do for other things within Handlebars. The only difference is it is going to start with the pound sign followed by the name of the expression, and it's going to end with a backslash and the name of the expression. And it's going to then be followed with a variable representing our context. So the idea here is that we're going to be using one of the predefined block expressions, which is each, which is obviously going to iterate through our array and render content on the screen for every element in that array. But we can also define custom helpers. We can register a helper with Handlebars, which is going to allow us to be able to create our own block expressions that can be used to render data and abstract out some of the complexity of the template itself and manage that within JavaScript. So you got to be a little careful there because you have to remember, again, we're using semantic templating. So one of the ideas here is that we want to expose a lot of the formatting here, so we don't want to abstract a lot of that away with the JavaScript, so you get a good happy medium there. This is then going to, we just put some Bootstrap formatting in here to get the content to appear in a panel, to be responsive, and to use the glyph icons to show just a little visual representation of the data. And right here, we then pass in the name from our template. So again, if we go back to the array, the name should be Edmund Ironside or whatever the name is for that particular array index that we're looking at. And then below that, we'll be passing in additional Handlebars variables for city, house, and years. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Here we have Edmund Ironside, and we see that he was in the United Kingdom, part of the House of Wessex, and he ruled in 1016. And this is the template here that we created. It's going to repeat itself for every one of these elements within the JSON array. And if we wanted to, we could then create something very similar for if we had another value that was, if we had another JSON object that was for queens, we can then pass that data in a separate context, maybe on a separate page, or using filters on the page, and we'd be able to present it using the same template. So it gives a really straightforward way of presenting your data, creating the structure of your document, and separating that out from the script itself that's going to populate the data. I hope this was helpful. Be coming back with some more videos on registering helpers and creating something that's a little bit more dynamic. And yeah, open to any questions. If you want, get me on Twitter at Ignortuition, or get me on my YouTube channel. All right. Thank you very much, and have a great night.